Our guest, I mentioned, Research Director of ESG and Sustainability at Verdantix. That's an industry analysis firm. I'm going to have her tell you what that is. Kim, please join us. Come on in.
Hello, Justin. How are you today?
Good. Hello. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Let's start with that. I mean, I'll be honest. I didn't know what Verdantix was before you and I were introduced. So I'm going to assume most of our audience doesn't. Give us a quick high level. What do you guys do, and how does your ESG role fit in?
Of course, of course. So we are an IT market research and advisory firm. And the best way to think about that is that we research and we analyze different technologies that are moving the needle forward related to sustainability. So that might be operational excellence, so improvements in a factory. It could be smart buildings, so in a building specifically. It could be environment, health, and safety related, or more general corporate strategy or net zero targets and carbon management. So a pretty wide range of issues. And the way that I always explain what I do to my in-laws and my parents, which I think is the test, right, is that companies spend millions and billions of dollars on technology. And wouldn't you like to have the ability to more wisely spend that money? So we help with that decision-making process, the investment process, the selection process, and we do that through market research and advisory.
Your in-law pitch is exactly the opposite of mine. Actually, I tell people, I work in Pro AV. They say, "What is that?" I say, "You know how you go in a conference room and there's a TV on the wall? Well, my industry is the one that thinks of the most expensive way possible to hook up to it. That's that's what we do. SDVoE being the cheapest of the most expensive ways, of course.
Of,
Um,
of course, of course.
what? So what is this? And you touched on a little bit in your previous answer, but what is sustainability for an electronics manufacturer? What do they need to shoot for?
So the first thing I want to check in on is the term sustainability. We've been using the term sustainability for a long time, and I'll say that the definition of that has evolved. And now we talk about ESG and sustainability and climate risk, kind of all in one bucket. And it's important because ESG is really the shortest way to say it, but it isn't just sustainability. It really speaks to the fact that there's been an evolution in thinking about connecting the financial implications of sustainability across environment, social, and governance. That brings me to what does it mean for a manufacturer? They are thinking about all three of those components: environment, social, and governance. And It could mean that they're thinking about a sustainable supply chain, minimizing risk and knowing exactly where their products are coming from. Are they using any conflict minerals? Hopefully not. Do they know exactly who their suppliers are and what kind of practices they have? Have they done basically an Industry 4.0 review of their factories? Are they using, for example, IoT or artificial intelligence or even just cloud technology to minimize the footprint of their factories? So it's products and processes, supply chain, you name it.
You talked about AI and IoT just as some examples. This is something that
I
came out in
did.
one of the news articles. As I read the whole thing, click down below to read the whole thing. That talked about what for our audience is much simpler stuff: building automation, right? The idea that and we as an industry are the ones that do this and have been for decades now. When the people detector sees there's no one in the room, turn off the lights because there's nobody there. But what you're talking about now are some even more advanced technologies, things like AI and IoT that are being deployed in this space to reduce footprint. Is that right?
That's right. For example, I know of a manufacturer who used both IoT and AI to minimize waste on the production process. So, for example, they were able to take images as a product was being built, identify when one of the machines was getting too hot, was damaging the wiring, and by getting an alert when the temperature was changing, they're able to, retune the manufacturing process and throw away less product. And of course, there are benefits to where they had more product to sell at a lower cost. So it
Right.
definitely is all connected.
That's where those things are going hand in hand, right? So that leads me actually perfectly to my next two questions, which I wanted to ask together because, well, you'll see why. Number one, why should a manufacturer care about sustainability? And then number two, why does a manufacturer care about sustainability? And I'm interested if there is a difference in the answer to those two questions, right? Why should we care and why do we care?
Let me why should they care? There are lots of motivations, I think, why companies and people should care about sustainability. Some of them being really big long-term topics, like we want this to be a healthy and safe environment for everyone here on Earth. But um, the more business-oriented, why should they care is because their performance from a sustainability perspective or an ESG perspective um, has implications, financial implications, and these are getting more serious every day. So I mentioned if we can minimize waste in a factory, then we can reduce our costs, and then we have more product to sell, right? So that's a simple one. But there are also the impact of the capital markets and things like the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, is working on some rules that will require public companies to disclose their climate risk. So much like they disclose other business risks, like there might be a natural disaster, I might not be able to get the suppliers I need for this product, demand might not go up as much as we thought. They'll also have to disclose things like this factory is in a location where we are concerned about sea rise, the rise of the
Mm-hmm.
ocean, and it could damage. Or we need water for our process, and the water tables are, decreasing in this area. Or it could be, this product requires this specific component, and it's just not sustainable to acquire that resource. It's things like that. But like I have some other little factoids. Let me see if I can grab them. They're things like the access to capital. Cost of debt is 2.5% higher for firms that don't have a great sustainability performance than others. Let's
Mm-hmm.
see. Office buildings that achieve the highest sustainability standards can charge more for rents. So it's things, lots of things that have financial implications. So hopefully that convinces you if being kind to the earth and to your fellow humans doesn't convince you.
I'm curious how we got here, and what I mean. There's a picture in my head. I'm going to try and paint as these words come out. Let's see if I can make it make sense. Historically, I'm going to say, as if I know anything, the challenge around sustainability has been that in general the profits are private and the costs, the environmental costs, the sustainable costs are social costs, right? I'm thinking back to the Lorax, right? I got little kids. I got my Thneed factory, and I'm making $1 billion on Thneeds. You know what? And I'm dumping all this toxic waste into the lake over here. But it's not my lake. I don't care. I'm ruining it for the fish and for everybody. But I'm making a ton of money. I'll go buy a lake house somewhere else, right? That's the structure. But it seems like what you're telling me now is that, I mean, my goodness, it's harder to access financing if I don't have some kind of reasonable sustainability process. That sounds like we are now socializing the profitability, if you will, right? Because now there's something in the world. It's this political force, I guess, that has told the SEC, that has told the financial institutions, we want you to care, so we need you to create these incentives. You see where I'm trying to
Yeah,
go
so
here?
let me remove a couple words that sound a little risky in your explanation.
Thank you, thank you.
This
I,
is
I
not
rely
about
on people like you to do that for me.
it is not about politics, and it is not about social um, social, it's not socialistic, or,
No, no,
this
no. You're right.
is
You're right.
definitely, yeah. So I want to be careful there, but let's face it, we've gotten to the point where you could not poison the fish because there are already rules and fines around that. Um,
Sure.
but there are, like I said, it is about sustainable business where your reputation, your, again, what kind of rates you're going to pay to get access to capital, how well you're going to do in a market, they are definitely impacted by your sustainability performance. And that's being quantified more and more every day. And it's always been that way to some extent. You go back 20 years, and consumer brands would ask consumers, does it matter to you that our product is sustainable? And they would often say yes. And but I'd say that if you look at kind of millennials and Generation X and Generation Z, they place a lot higher performance on sustainability than previous
Hmm.
generations have. So, it's definitely going to matter. You were telling me that a lot of the places where your partners are working is in the entertainment venues. Most of the
Sure.
entertainment venues, for example, um, the artists who perform there have some expectation of the sustainability footprint of the
Okay.
entertainment venue, right? So all of these little connections are being made, whether it's financial, whether it's consumer driven, competitive, uh, cost structure. They're all coming together for it to really be important right now, if you didn't think it was before.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, and I didn't mean politics before in the nasty like way that we Americans can see and understand politics. I just meant it from the pure perspective of you talk about this generational shift, even people coming to just understand more, right? And I think you quantified it perfectly, right? I'm thinking back to 40 years ago when David Lee Roth was demanding no brown M&Ms in his dressing room. Now it's Lady Gaga demanding that we got to have a sustainable AV system powering this concert venue. Okay, so it's the
Could
shift
be.
in,
Yeah.
in people driving this, and I'm fascinated that that goes all the way to the level of capital markets. To me, that now you're really playing with incentives. You know what I mean? Now it's not just let's do this to feel good. It's like, oh, hello, everybody's got to wake up and pay attention to do business.
I think that's the best summary. Everybody's got to wake up and figure this out to do business. Hmm.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, I have about six more questions to ask, but we're up against time for now. Stay right there.